Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with If I Could Choose Only One Recording by Artist X, it would have to be recording V. Well, Artist X is the great pianist Artur Rubinstein, who nobody seems to be talking about much anymore. Boy, when he was alive, it was Rubinstein-Horowitz, Rubinstein-Horowitz, which was better? There we were, you know? And now, after the huge Rubinstein editions came out, we don't seem to be that interested in him, which is a shame, because he was absolutely one of the great artists of the 20th century and one of the great keyboard virtuosi and a man of incredible cultivation and elegance and class in everything he did. And because I get to give the evil god Cankresans an album, meaning, in my view, a multi-disc set, possibly, and not just restrict myself to one recording of one little sniglet or one thing like that, I have chosen Rubinstein Plays Chopin, the original jacket edition, all of it, all of his Chopin recordings for RCA. Now, people who are piano mavens, like my dear friend Jed Disler, love to compare early Rubinstein to later Rubinstein and, decide which one is better for which work or which piece or which thing and all that stuff. And that's all great. I have no problem with that. But for my money, it's these mostly stereo ones, because the last disc is mono. They give you some of his RCA, early RCA recordings that were in mono. And I'm going to tell you what's on it, and then we'll talk about why it's so wonderful and why we have to take this beautiful box whole. Really just tremendous stuff. We get the complete Nocturns, unbelievable performances. The complete Mazurkas, arguably the best cycle of the Mazurkas yet done. The ballades, the scherzos, the polonaises and the polonaise fantasy. Sonatas 2 and 3 with the fantasy in F minor. The waltzes, the impromptus, the andante spianato and grand polonaise, the barcarolle, the bolero, the berceuse, and the tarantelle. That's all the stereo stuff. Then the mono stuff, you got the preludes, sonata number 2, again, the funeral march sonata, the berceuse, and the barcarolle. Now, you will notice what is not here are the etudes. I mean, Rubinstein did play them periodically, but not for RCA. He didn't remake them here, which is kind of interesting. He was not, perhaps, is attuned to the technical virtuosity showmanship aspect of the etudes. But whether he did or he didn't doesn't matter. What matters is what he did. And the reason these performances are so special is because, as I said, he was a man of great cultivation and taste and joie de vivre. He could make the piano sing. You could hear the joy that he had in playing emanate from the keyboard, and you hear it. You hear it in these performances. The Nocturns are just exquisite, but flowing, effortlessly flowing. He had this beautiful sense of give and take, of how to float a phrase over the bar lines, how to make the music seem as though time was suspended, but still keeping it moving without breaking the back of the rhythm. His earlier Chopin interpretations, particularly of things like the Mazurkas and whatnot, were more liberal in terms of rhythm. They were more flexible in pulse. The rubato was perhaps a little more generous within the phrase. But then, when he redid them, he just substituted for that a poise, a maturity, a naturalness, an inevitability, all of those sort of adjectives that are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I mean, some of Chopin's most amazing music is in the Mazurkas, and here it sounds really amazing because the unexpected bits are surprising and fresh. There's just, when you consider that the guy was, he lived to be in his 90s and he went blind, and, he was in his 70s and 80s, and with music he lived with all his life. You get a sense that he lived with it all his life, but never got tired of it, always was ready to look at it as something new and make discoveries. And we hear them. The polonaises are amazing. They are just grand and bold, and gosh, it's great stuff. The waltzes have such elegance, such grace. It's just fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous set. And so, there are other things by Rubinstein I would love to be able to pick. I mean, his Saint-Saëns Second Piano Concerto. Nobody does that theme in the middle of the scherzo better than he does. Yum ba dum ba da dum ba da bum ba da 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 da. You know, it's like you just feel him strutting down the boulevard in Paris, twirling his cane. You know, that kind of stuff. He could do that. He made you sit up and pay attention, and he does that with his Chopin. He really does. One of the great Chopin players that ever lived. There's been so much Chopin. One of the problems with a composer like Chopin is that he's such standard stuff. And everybody does it. And quite a few people do it supremely well. So we tend to forget. We tend not to pay attention. Where we listen to the latest recordings, or we listen to a couple of the, specific earlier ones by the flavor of the month big name, or big old dead name, or something like that. I don't know. All I can tell you is this is as good as it gets. It really is. You may have your preferences for other people in certain works, but in terms of exalted standard, idiomatic flair, identification with the repertoire, just a totally effortless projection of what Chopin was all about. This box. The original jacket edition of the Rubinstein Chopin recordings for RCA definitely is what I would save if I could only have one by this artist. And I think the evil Cancresans will hear this and fall so in love with Rubinstein and his musical approach that he will forswear eliminating every recording but for the single one that we've chosen, and let us have the whole big box because we deserve it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.